Welcome to Sports Cards once again. In this video, I'm going to share with you a few strategies I use to make some money on COMC, and let's jump right on it. Now, just as a caveat here, I should mention that what I'm going to be sharing in this video are more about how to capitalize on the specific context created within these two sports card marketplaces, COMC and StarStock. I don't necessarily think some of these strategies are for everybody, because some of them are really more about the systems of buying and selling than they are about the sports cards themselves. And that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. For me, doing some of these strategies can feel a little bit more like I'm playing a video game or something rather than I'm actually participating in the sports card hobby. So I just wanted you to be ready for that at the beginning here. Not all of these strategies are going to be for everyone, though I do hope and think that there is some value in here for everyone despite that. Now let's get the ball rolling with 5 strategies that I would suggest looking into and considering with COMC. Strategy 1, look at the recently added section regularly. Now, very frequently when I first log into COMC, the first thing I do is just take a quick look through the first page or two of cards that have recently been added to the site. Most of the time, it'll just be a quick 2-minute glance, but every once in a while, a card will pop up in there that is really underpriced. You may be the first one or one of the first people to even see this card up for sale, so you're going to be first in line to grab any good deals that pop up. Now, don't expect phenomenal deals to pop up all the time, but it does happen every once in a while. Strategy 2. Pay attention to specific special events COMC occasionally runs. Some won't help, some will. Learn to recognize opportunities and always think about things through the lens of supply and demand to find these opportunities. Now, I say learn to recognize opportunities here because the special events COMC runs will sometimes be helpful to you and sometimes won't be. You kind of have to learn how to recognize the difference. For example, during the first week of the NBA season this year, COMC ran a special event to get cards put up for auction on a special page that would be linked from the front page of eBay. I thought to myself, okay, that sounds like a good opportunity to get a lot of eyes on my cards just as the NBA season is starting. Cool. Logical enough train of thought, yeah? But tons of other people had the exact same stream of thinking, and the card market was still right in the middle of a steady downward drop to fix the market explosion that had happened a year ago. So not only were card prices down at that time, but my specific cards also became buried deep down the search list, making potential buyers quite unlikely to find my specific card in the ocean of cards that was suddenly there. Thinking about this in retrospect with the supply and demand concept in mind, it makes sense that I ended up losing money from the COMC NBA tip-off special event. Essentially, COMC created an event to make the supply of cards much larger for a short period of time, but the demand wasn't increasing enough to meet the sudden influx of supply. So as a result, many of the cards selling at that time ended up going for quite a low price. It could have been a great opportunity for a buyer, but as a seller, I lost quite a bit of money on that one. But another more recent example was a time where an opportunity for profit arose from a different special event COMC ran. During December 2021 and January 2022, COMC ran a special event to take away their minimum auction fee, which is usually a $3.50 minimum fee. Well, not completely take away, there was still a 50-cent submission fee per card plus their normal 3.5% commission. Now, normally when you want to auction your cards on eBay from COMC, they take that 3.5 commission on each sale, which is fine, but they have a minimum fee of $3.50. So for cards over maybe $50, $75, $100, that minimum fee is reasonable, and if you're making good decisions, it leaves room for a margin of profit. But if you're wanting to sell a card for like $10 or $20 or something, a $3.50 charge is likely to be all or most of your profit margin. So this is why they recommend you only auction cards worth at least $50 through COMC. But for these 2 months, they got rid of that minimum auction fee. When they did this, it got me thinking. I very often see cards on COMC that sell for very cheap as everyone tries to undercut the other sellers on the platform. But also quite often, some of these cards can go for a handful of dollars more over on eBay. So during the months of December and January, especially January, since the card market seemed to rebound a little bit in that month, at least in what I was seeing, I focused my COMC attention and time almost entirely on finding cards that I could buy and put up for auction right away to make a couple of bucks. Essentially, my strategy was similar to like retail arbitrage. I would buy in one market for a low price and sell in another market for a higher price. But because COMC was doing all the work for me, all I was doing was clicking a couple of mouse buttons. And honestly, finding the cards for this was really quite easy. For lower end cards, COMC prices are often much less than eBay. People sometimes use COMC for those lower end cards so they don't have to deal with the hassle of eBay. And because of this, for many lower end cards, the supply on COMC becomes incredibly large, that everyone has has to end up selling for really low to be able to even sell those cards at all. If they don't put it super low, their cards will end up on page 2 or 3 or 4, and they'll never even get an eye on them. But on eBay, though the supply is also probably huge, it's harder to see the massive supply in the ocean of eBay in any one specific place. The supply is more unclear. On eBay, someone may bid on a card for $4 that if they had really looked deeper, they could have found it maybe in the Buy It Now section for $2, but they just didn't see it. That can't happen on the COMC platform because everything is in one big category. Strategy 3. Look for non-sports cards too. COMC, it seems to me, is mostly aimed at the sports card market, even though they do have a pretty solid selection of various non-sports cards as well. I get the impression, however, that while a lot of sports card sellers on the platform update their prices relatively regularly when players have price spikes, I don't think that always happens with things like Marvel cards. This is just my impression on the matter, but whatever it is that is the cause, as I'm beginning to learn more and more about Marvel cards and other non-sports cards, something I've never known much about before but have been working on learning more recently, I'm finding really amazing deals on non-sports cards on COMC, much easier than I'm finding them with sports cards. For any of you who actually have more deep and significant knowledge in some of these spaces than I do, there could be some gems just waiting there for you to discover them. Strategy 4. Buy from COMC and sell elsewhere. As I mentioned before, due to the fact that some cards end up getting really crowded on COMC, in order to kind of just offload some of their lower end cards, people attempting to undercut the market price can very often end up selling their cards for incredibly cheap. In many of these circumstances, there may be like 400 of that card for sale on the site, and a solid 20 of them may be selling for quite a bit less than they could go for elsewhere. Sports card arbitrage can really work from COMC with cards like this. In order to make it worth your while though, you'd probably want to do this on a pretty decent quantity, because it really works best with lower end stuff. And for this reason, this strategy won't be for everyone. Strategy number 5, port sales. Now this is a strategy I haven't actually done myself, so I won't talk about it too much, but it's something that I have heard about others doing with quite a lot of success. On COMC, some people might want to sell all the cards they have up for sale in one larger sale, so they will put up their whole port, the name for your COMC store, up for sale. Now most of the time, it seems that people who do port sales are mostly just asking exorbitant prices for super cheap cards, but that's not all that exists in the port sale space. It's not too different than buying a huge lot of cards from someone at a garage sale or on Craigslist or something, from someone who is trying to offload all their stuff in one big sale. Sometimes it's all a bunch of garbage, but sometimes there can be some really good deals that could be had. It just requires diligence and looking closely. If you ever do this, do be careful not to assume COMC's estimated total suggested retail price, the SRP, means anything at all. Some people sell their ports with the hope that people see that SRP as something real, but in my experience, cards are usually worth half or less of the SRP value COMC is giving them. I really don't know where COMC gets those wildly wrong numbers. A lot of people also jack up their asking price for the individual cards in their port so that it looks that they're actually selling a bunch of valuable cards when actually it's all garbage. So look closely at what the cards actually are and that there actually is a good deal in there. It seems like most COMC ports for sale kind of feel like they're just people trying to trick someone into thinking they're getting a really good deal on something when really they're not. But within all that garbage, there are some potential gems. You just gotta look, at least if this is a strategy you're interested in. How about you? Do you have any other strategies you find beneficial on these platforms that you wouldn't mind sharing with others in the comments below?